All right, today we are working on a restore from another computer for a VRA agent in OpenText Server Backup, formerly Carbonite Server Backup or eVault. And I've got that restore from another computer set up here where it's throwing an error that it couldn't load the job configuration, something about not being compatible or with a newer agent version. So let's take a look at the setup here. This server that I've selected as my destination for the data to go to, the win dash, et cetera, et cetera. It is agent version 9.4, and then I am going to collapse this and take a look at my VRA. YT VRA here is agent version 9.22. So a restore from another computer should be perfectly fine to go from a 9.2 to a 9.4. Well, why isn't this working? The reason for that is even though the VRA is capable of doing a file and folder restore here under the select action dropdown and selecting restore, we can see right here, files and folders is an option and we can continue with that. But the main issue here is that the destination, this win dash, etc., is a regular Windows agent, not a VRA agent. So there's two things that we can do here to get our data to the Win server. The first and most basic is to just kick off this restore directly on the VRA server, and you have to make the assumption that those are both on the same network or able to communicate with each other in some fashion. I'll go ahead and select the files and folders, continue to the next screen, where I like to change the idle timeout to 15 minutes, put my check mark in my server, and enter in my password. And on the process details screen here, once we've got the restore path opened up, we actually know that we are ready to pull data. To go directly onto the VRA server and navigate either into the mounted drives, or we can go to the C drive, restore mount, and navigate into the C drive in my case and go to different locations. This is the VM that was backed up. You can see in the address bar it's for the Archer server. And from here, I can just open up another Explorer window, go directly to the destination server here, and I'm going to choose the C drive as one of my targets. And from here, since I've got the C drive opened up, and so now I can choose any file that's on the restore medium and copy it over to that destination server by just click and dragging it over, and I can copy it out of the restore server into the destination server. Now the reverse is also true. So I can go to the destination server. And so just to confirm that I'm in the right spot, I've got the host name here. I am on the right server. And I'm going to make a network connection over to the YT VRA. And directly on the C drive across the network here, we have the restore mount folder. I can go into here and select any of these files that I need to copy out. I'll use the VMware again, just as our example here, and copy it over to my desktop. And there we go. We've got the files off the VRA onto the destination server, even though the destination server does not have the VRA software. The next option for getting the restore done to that Win server is if these are in a different network segment where Samba is not allowed to traverse between the two servers, we do have to get a little bit more involved, but we're going to go through those steps, uninstalling the existing agent and installing the VRA version of the software. At this point, I'll go ahead and stop the share restore here, and then we'll move to the other server. So on this server, if you already have a lot of backups running on it, or it's highly configured in any way, you might want to think twice about going through this process. Just because we are going to remove the agent, we will not be removing the actual backup data that's on the vault though. Now that I'm on the server, I'm just going to open up the appwiz.cpl here for the programs and features and select the agent install. Now, depending on your version, it could be OpenText server backup or Carbonite server backup or eVault. So just make sure to select the correct one and then hit the uninstall button. On the last screen of the uninstall, we do want to do a total uninstall because we're going to be installing the other agent version here. Once that's been completed, navigate to where you've downloaded the installation material here and run that. And I'm just going to skip through this real quick. If you need steps for how to install the software, I do have another video on that process. Now that the install is completed, we're going to jump back over to Portal here. And I can refresh this interface by clicking on computers or hitting refresh on the browser. Now this is where it can throw some people off in regards to the interface listing two servers with the exact same name on it. In my particular case, I do have this top one here that shows as an unconfigured as well, simply because I did a fresh install for the demo of this video. You could have a previous status such as OK, depending on your setup and configuration. Now this entry is stale at this point. When we do an uninstall of the agent, Portal doesn't know that we did a full uninstall. It just saw the agent go offline. So it does not remove it from here because it's waiting for it to come back online. The other half of this is that each registration to Portal creates a unique identifier to Portal. So even if we were to install the Windows agent again and register to Portal a second time, it would not reuse this line item here for this server because it creates another unique ID. Because of that, we know that this is never going to come back online, and we're going to do a delete. Just put a check mark in the one that is offline that we know is not going to come back, and then under the action drop down just above that, select the delete selected computers. From here, we're going to type in confirm. Now your window may have two options here, one to do a full delete from the vault and the other to just delete from Portal. If this was a server that had backup data and is going to continue with backup data at the end of this process, just make sure to do the delete from Portal. We do not want to remove anything from the vault as we will continue to utilize that data. Select confirm. And when this is done, it will refresh the Portal interface and we will just have the single win with the VRA logo and the agent version 9.22 that we're expecting here. At this point, we need to go configure this agent. So we are going to select anywhere on the line or the arrow on the right side. And I'm going to select the configure manually option here because we just want a registration and no jobs created. On the right side, even though it has the same name and this has been registered to the vault in the past, we want to do the add vault, not the re-register. Now, the other half of this is if you use this exact same name for the registration, because this field is editable, then it will throw an error that that registration already exists. So what I'm going to do in the agent hostname section is just put very end here, temp. And that's going to be it. That'll be my indicator to me that I can do a deletion later on. Now I have a vault profile. If you need a vault profile set up, I do have a video on that process, but you can also enter in your vault information manually. Double check that it does still say the temp name on the end of this one, and then save the registration information. Now with that vault registration complete, we do have to do one thing that seems a little bit counterintuitive, and that is we have to enter in a vSphere setting here. And so I'm going to put in the information for my environment. And then once you've got the credentials verified here, then we can jump over to the Jobs tab. On the right side, we'll have the Select Job Task dropdown, and we can select the Restore from Another Computer option. Select the source VRA of where that server had its backup done, and then click on OK. From here, select Files and Folders, and then Continue. And because this is a Restore from Another Computer, the destination agent doesn't know anything about the catalog information yet. To get that, we have to enter in the password used at the time of the backup, and then click on OK. That will download all of the catalog information. Now, my personal preference here is to actually increase this idle timer to 15 minutes and then put in my password while I wait for the server information to come up. And then after it loads, put a check mark in the server that you're wanting to do the file and folder restore of, and then click on Run Restore. Now that the processing status shows us a path for that restore mount, we have successfully taken the backup information from the VRA, original VRA here, and the Win server now has it available to restore directly onto it. So let's jump to that server. As you can see, we're on this server. So at this point, I can just open up my file explorer here, navigating to the C drive, and I've got the restore mount path with that server. And I can just take any file that I want out of here and just copy it, say, to my desktop. Now that we're done, in my case, from the Archer server, restoring that information to this Win, etc. server, there is a little bit of cleanup that needs to happen. So I'm going to close this window here. I've got all of my files that I need as part of that restore. I'm going to go back to Portal. And under this Win server here, I do have the restore still processing. If you waited that 15 minutes, you would not have this little blue spinning arrow telling you that it's processing. So what I need to do, because mine has not timed out, is actually click directly on those arrows, and it will bring up that process box for me. And I will click the stop button so that it's no longer creating the share on that server. And then that is going to close out that process. So I can actually close this dialog box also. It'll be wrapped up with everything very shortly. As you can see, mine already popped off the screen here saying that it's done. At this point, we're actually going to do the reverse of what we did earlier. I'm going to come over to that Win-server here, and I'm going to uninstall the VRA agent software. In the programs and features, just a reminder, yours might not be called OpenText Server Backup. Depending on the agent version, it could be called Carbonite Server Backup or eVault. With the uninstall done, I'll go ahead and install my regular agent again. At this point, you may want to do a custom install, and that just depends on what plugins may have been in use on a previous install, if any at all. If you did have any plugins like SQL, Exchange, etc., then select the radio button for custom and hit next, and then next one more time, and you'll get to the plugin option screen here, where the most common one would probably be image, but just make sure for your particular backup that you're selecting the right one. If you're unsure, you can actually select all of them if you wanted to, and having the plugin available is not going to hurt anything. Basically, you'll just get an extra dropdown in the portal dialog box for the select action dropdown, and you'll see the extra SQL, Exchange, etc. Even though that particular software may not be installed, the plugin is still available. I'm just going to hit next on this one and continue out the install and put in my portal registration information. With that completed, we'll now jump back over to portal, and we'll refresh the screen here by clicking on computers, or you can refresh the browser as a whole. And we've got the exact same scenario again, but in reverse. We've got the VRA software with the VMware logo and the 9.22 in an offline status. And then we've got our new install, but unconfigured with the 9.4 here. So let's do a little bit of cleanup. Again, we're going to put a check mark in this win for the VMware one, the actions dropdown, and delete selected computer, entering in your confirmation to remove it from the interface here, and then when it refreshes, we've got just the one server that we want. Again, those unique identifiers were different, so it's not going to reuse. So when we click on this, it does bring up the option to automatic or manually configure. Being that we had it previously installed, and under the assumption that it was doing some backup work previously, we do want to do the configure manually option here. And then on the right side, the re-register button. This will allow us to enter in our Vault profile or manually entering in the information here, and then clicking the Load Computers button. Now when this comes up, we're going to see the two entries. We've got our original entry and our temp, which we know we don't want because that's just the one that we had our VRA registration for. So selecting the correct server here, I will click on Save, and then this brings up a dialog box just giving us a little warning that if there was any existing information on the server, it could be wiped out because it's going to pull all of the configuration information that the Vault is aware about, not what is currently on the system. Clicking yes then brings us back to the Jobs tab, where in my case, it's actually not going to load any jobs because there were no jobs on this one. But if you did have some backup jobs, they would be listed here, and you'd have to go in and manually enter in the encryption password for every job. Well, after it finished loading there, I decided I actually would create a job so that I could show you what was actually needing to be done here after the re-registration. So I've got my job here called subscribe. I can either click directly on the text here or under the select action dropdown on the right, hit edit job. And then in here, you would just need to enter in your encryption password twice and then hit the save button. Now it is going to come up with this box here that says if the encryption password has changed, it will cause a reseed of the data. And so you'll have to do a synchronize of the backup just to make sure that the encryption password was entered correctly. If the Delta file recovery does not happen, then you know that the encryption password was entered wrong. And that can be done under the select action dropdown on the right and synchronize. And that's your options for getting the data from a VRA backup over to a Windows agent backup. The first process of just going over the Samba share is a bit more straightforward and a lot less complex as far as getting that to the destination. But if needs be, there are options to be able to restore from another computer to a destination site, for example. If you have any questions about this process, go ahead and comment down below, and we'll catch you in another video. See ya.